Okay, so here goes. So, my name is Ben, and I am very nervous right now because I'm trying to do a whole new way of being and trying to take a whole new look at life and trying to find a new way to sustain myself whilst I'm out here in Cyprus I'm doing a life change. I am here to work on myself, I'm here to be clean. I've been clean for 3 months now, so that's like yay. But what I'm doing, I'm trying to, how do I put this? I'm trying to find a way to serve the world in a new way, in a way like this, for example. I'm going to put this up on Facebook and I'm going to put this up on YouTube to see what can manifest. Let's see. Well, I guess first I should introduce myself and give you a little bit of background on who I am and what has happened to me in this world. So I am from a tiny little village in England on the east coast. I've had UFO and ET ghost experiences my whole life. It's also intergenerational in my family. These experiences started whilst I was before the age of 7. One of my earliest experiences was I was in bed. I could always perceive things in my bedroom anyway, but one night in particular a large bright light shone on my bedroom wall and this kind of shadow puppet sort of appeared like this. Now I know this is going to sound crazy, but I don't know what it was trying to do, but I think it was trying to make me feel comfortable or somehow, like, because I've researched a lot into this since in my adult life, and this is what it seems to be. However, in this dream, I was actually initially very, very scared, and I was throughout that whole little dream area. But what did I do? I called my mum, and she then came into the room and she hit the wall with this newspaper, like to try and get rid of it. And I thought, that's not my mum. And that was one of my earliest experiences. One of the next ones was when I was probably between 7 and 10, and I was on the beach with my father. We were walking the dog at night, and my father pointed out to me, a childhood friend, that this massive UFO thing was in the sky. Now this just stood totally still in the sky. It had a ring of lights at the top and a ring of lights at the bottom, and it had this darkness that connected the two. And you could see there were stars behind it and stuff like this, because this was like not the middle of the night. This was early evening, and none of us have any memories of what happened, but it was definitely looking at us, and we were looking at it. The only thing I can say about this experience was when it disappeared, it was just very stationary in the sky. Excuse me. It was very stationary in the sky, and it just turned on its own axis where it stood in the sky, and it just vanished there and then. So later on, as an adult, I researched this stuff, and I found that this was an interdimensional type craft. Now, and then after that, over the sort of coming years in the village, I would have seen like lots of like star-sized light craft. They would be so tiny, but they would zip across the sky and then disappear in another direction. Other things. As a child, during all this time, I would sometimes hear like a whispering of my name as I was going to bed. Now this didn't scare me, but it was very weird. It sounded like a family member whispering my name. However, it wasn't. And then later on, looking at Mary Rodwell's work, them children report that was to try and ask them to come outside for a physical abduction. So I missed out on that one. Anyway, so the other experiences I had in my flat as an adult, back in Norwich, I was on a mostly vegetarian diet at the time, and I had a number of experiences, and these were things like I would wake up in the middle of the night. This only happened just the once, this experience. So I was laying in my bed. I woke up in the middle of the night. The room was lit with like some kind of light, but not mine. I was paralysed, and I then could do the only thing I could do at that time was turn my head over to the right. Now at the time I was sleeping on a futon bed, and sort of level with my face was this little grey type alien, but it was the size of a grey, but it wasn't like grey all over. It's just it was almost like it was shifting through reality. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was moving through colours of like, you know, grey, green, brown, all these different things, and I didn't get any fear from this entity. It seemed to have smiled at me, and then it sort of disappeared. But at the time, in its left hand, it had this tiny little rod about this size. It was black, and it was either hexagonal or pentagonal in its shape. I was told later by Simon Parkes that I was being checked up on, and sort of that was the end of that experience. Now I've also had spontaneous astral projection a couple of times, and I would pivot from my hips like I did when I was a child, but I actually came out of body, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. And then during that same experience, it was like a little shadow being. It looked like almost like a cute little silhouette of a devil type thing, with like tiny little wings, and it sort of circled in and came in. And then the next thing I remember, I was outside of my building I was staying, and my bed, or me, almost with, I think I had a sheet on me, I was sort of coming out of the window and going down into the ground. And I wake up the next day, and obviously I'm still in my bed. The next time was the next astral projection was I was dreaming a very real dream, and I thought, this is too real. So I was like, oh, I know, I'll check to see if I'm asleep. And in that very moment, I came out of my body, saw myself asleep, and went straight back into my body, and then immediately woke up, thinking, what the hell? I think. So the next, excuse me, the next experiences I want to talk about is another one back in the flat, and this was a tall grey dream. Now this was a really interesting dream because this happened in like 4 stages. So as I went to sleep, I would be in like a slight, sleep state, so it'd be, darkness. But from different angles, a tall white grey would come in from this side, and then I would sort of wake up because of the shock of it, and then I would go back to sleep again, and then another one would come, maybe the same one, don't know, would come from this way, and I would be shocked and wake up. And the next one, I'd done the same thing again, and it came from another angle, and I woke up. Then, for the rest of that dream, I was sitting in a white room with like circular tables. There was no sharp edges, it was all very curved, and there was another table with another human and a tall white grey person. And I was looking at this table. I had a grey next to me at this point. It seemed as though at this point I was cool with it. And it was like one of my plugs here. If you know what these are, they sit and they roll. And this was on the table, and it seemed like I was practicing telekinesis, because I was making it roll backwards and forwards on this table. And I thought to myself, cool, this feels a lot like lucid dreaming. And then I woke up. Now the next one is a real-time tall grey or a tall white experience. I was in the city I was living in Norwich, and I was going to get some new glasses. And I was approaching the shop, the opticians, and this guy, really tall, very white skin, bald head, was straight facing opposite me, and he wasn't wearing glasses, but he approached the door at the same time as me, and we walked in together. He said nothing, but I didn't think anything of it, and I just sort of moved on and went to book myself in for my appointment. I then went upstairs to where my appointment was going to be held, and then a couple of minutes pass, and this same individual comes up the stairs and sits right next to me with our legs touching. And I'm not sure whether I was afraid or I was slightly paralysed or shocked. I wanted to speak to this guy because I was like, this is fascinating. This guy doesn't feel human at all. I sat there for a bit. He sat there for a bit. We said absolutely nothing to each other. And after 5 minutes or so, he just silently got up and walked out. Really bizarre. Another experience in real time was at a May Day event in Norwich again, and this was where sort of all the local sort of hippies would all come together, and would have a drink, would have a smoke, would play some instruments, would juggle, and I was just sort of wandering around minding my own business, and these two people come along. Now this was a tall guy again with a shorter woman. They both had really long white hair, and the old guy looked like this girl's father, because this guy if you would put an age to it, it would probably been in his 70s. He had a very stern look on his face, like nothing impressed him, and this girl was on his arm. And I sort of just stopped in my tracks and was just staring at them, and I thought, well, who are these? Who are these guys? I don't see them around. And they go past me, they carry on walking, they just sort of seem to walk straight past me. I think we made eye contact once with the tall guy, with the man. And as they go past, the girl, still on this guy's arm, turns around and just looks straight at me. And she had really blue eyes, like bluer than my eyes. They were almost like a ice white colour. And I thought, okay, that was weird, carry on with life. Now then, this next one is a crazy dream, because I don't even have to make notes for this one, because I remember everything. This was a dream I called, I was in a hybrid hive. So this dream starts with me walking up the pathway to what I thought in this dream was a new flat, and I was really excited because this flat had 4 rooms, a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room. And I look up to the sky. This place is next to a field, and I see this sort of like a bright, kind of almost like a firework, but it was lasting a really long time, and then it had like 3 other kind of fireworks similar to the same size coming off of it, and I was like, oh wow, look at that. And so then I go into the front door of this house, and I walk in the front door, and there is a guy, or an entity, and now I could never see this guy's face, but he was with me throughout the whole experience, almost guiding me through this house. So I walk in, and the first thing I notice is that there's sort of like this off-ready brown carpet going down the hallway. There is a set of stairs to my left that were going down into another level. There was a door coming close to me on the right hand side, and I look into this room, and the first thing I see is these what looks like elderly people, like in an old folks home in England where you have them chairs with the bits where they can rest their heads, all with breathing apparatus on. And I thought, okay, it's a bit weird. And then I look to my left, and there is these three badly drawn, they look like badly drawn Native Americans, like with round faces, dark skin, and just like a loincloth on, just looking at me. And I thought, okay, weird. And me and this guy, we carry on down this hallway, and I then come into this room, and this room is just full of people, and they were just all different types of people. I mean, as I looked into this room, there would have been a table here, sort of like an offset, possibly a sofa, then you go back and there would have been a staircase going up to the second floor, and it just looks like a house party really, but no one in there was human, or like everyone was like a cat human hybrid, a reptilian human hybrid, a grey human hybrid, and I was just walking sort of through this house just identifying them all, and then this weird cat type thing appeared, and it was almost like this, I don't know, it was supposed to move me from one place to another, and so it came in like on these, I don't know how to describe it, like these weird sparkles behind it, and I climbed on its back, and it took me upstairs to this room where I was sitting on this bed with three other individuals, sorry. And I look at the guy dead opposite me, and I'm looking at him, and then he sort of closes his eyes and opens them again, and they're like reptilian eyes, like the yellow kind of reptilian eyes, and the first words out of my mouth were, "You're beautiful." And then the guy next to him whispers something into his ear, and he sort of does this kind of half smile thing that I've read about reptilians doing, where they're just like, and sort of and says nothing. I then decide I'm going to wander around this house for a bit, so I'm upstairs, and I'm just going through the place, and I seem to instinctively or intuitively know where to move between these people so I don't run into anyone. And I was just going through there going, oh, he's that kind of hybrid, he's that kind of hybrid, this one's this kind of hybrid, that one's that kind of hybrid. I also met two cat beings. One was like light blue and blue stripes coming down as like, you know, a human shape, and a red and yellow one with the same kind of pattern going down. But they were just sort of brief memories. And then I am sitting downstairs in a room which has just one door at the far right, and then one door to my near left, and it was sort of chairs lining, you know, leg to leg all the way around the room, with loads of different people there, and they were asking me questions. One of the questions was, will you stop smoking? And I said to myself, ooh, probably not. And then at this point, 2/3 of the room empties, and there's just a few people left. And then I think to myself, what if I say I will stop smoking? So I say I will stop smoking, and the room fills up again. Probably I should stop smoking? Who knows? Then the next part is I'm upstairs again in a different room, and I'm sitting opposite these two guys. Now these guys looked identical. They were dressed the same, they looked the same, and they were, well, I'll put it like this. The guy was sort of like just looking at this one guy, and this guy was sort of like looking away, like in deep thought. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh, blah, 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 and says this really long word. And then the guy next to him who was staring at him was like, ah, you got it. So I think what they were trying to do there was they were trying to telepathically send a word to this guy, and this guy was saying it like a challenge almost. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. I don't think I've forgotten anything, but at this point, we then look out the window, and it's like, oh, the party's over. And the reason for it was that outside the window was red and blue flashing lights, like American police vehicles. And this is what makes me think that I must have been somewhere in America. But this dream seemed to have gone on forever. I wish I could draw it. And then the dream stopped. This is one of the weirdest things that's ever happened, because all of the memories are all still there to this day. And I think what am I supposed to be here for? All of this is going on. What the fuck? Yeah. So that's that experience as well. In terms of like how this leads into the rest of my life, it's quite interesting because I'm considered the black sheep in my family. Even though I don't have a bad heart, I couldn't really be educated properly in school because a lot of it I felt was rubbish. And I was also told I couldn't be educated or I couldn't learn, which was quite... it's not the sort of thing you want to hear from your folks growing up, is it? That you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you need to be able to do this in order to do this. So it leaves a person thinking, well, what can I do? So I quit school at the age of 15. I was sick of the being told you can't. I was sick of the bullying. I was sick of all of the other things that just came with it. And then because I realised I didn't know anything. So I was like, how could I learn something? So I went straight out into the world, put myself in, you could say, some interesting situations around interesting people, to learn something. And I started learning quite a lot about people. As life then progressed, at about the age of 17, I discovered amphetamines. And this evening, that night, all them years ago, I learnt to learn the very first time in my life. I had this stuff, and I then held a 2-hour conversation with a person for the first time in my life. It wasn't until my friend pointed out to me that I'd been chatting to this guy for 2 hours did I realise, and I was like, oh my god, wow, first mind blow. The next one was I learnt how to play Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game against 6 other people, which involved the reading, the maths, the learning the rules, the cards, all the different types, all these variables, and it all worked out. And I thought, holy crap, this is incredible. So I instantly became quite emotionally addicted to this stuff straight away before the actual addiction kicked in. But as a result, it's not all bad, because like I say, I learnt how to learn. So at this point, I went crazy in learning. I learned all of the juggling spectrum of skills. I'm a fire spinner professionally on fire since I was 18. Excuse me, I'm now 32. Forgive me if you hear the nervousness. This is a bit new. So I then spent hours and hours, I mean probably days worth of hours juggling. I spent 13 years on this stuff, and about 8 years in, I was educating myself about superfoods, and so I got into that, and I realised I could probably undo some damage as I was doing it. However, drugs are not sustainable as a life path. They will eventually destroy you. They will do your head in, and try as you might, they will not totally serve you. All I can say is that amphetamines taught me how to learn. Part of me wishes that if I could go back and change one thing, it would have been diagnosed as ADHD and medicated in school, because I would have left with more than grades. And now, in the same breath, there is a contradiction here, because if I was to have been, if I was to have been diagnosed and medicated, then I would have taken a very different path, and I wouldn't have ended up here, and I wouldn't have had the journeys that I've had and met the people I have met, to which I've met some very, very amazing, interesting people. So, back to the story. So we spent about 8 years as a professional fire spinner. I mean, I've had many different jobs anyway. I've done almost everything. I spent 4 years teaching kids on the river in Norfolk, how to do survival, how to set up bivvies, make your fires, skin rabbits, all this good stuff. I then spent 2 years with the circus, all again teaching and entertaining. And what I learned then was that children can learn really, really quickly. And I realised maybe I was accessing this same type of learning through this medium of this stuff, but because I was so excited by this ability to take in information, taking in this information, I didn't always need the stimulus. However, it was still ever present in my life. But now I'm 3 months out of that, and things are feeling better. Still trying to find my place in the world. I still know who I am, and the type of person I am is I have a good heart. I am hardworking. I am the type of person to help anyone who I can see needs it. Sometimes friends come to me and ask me certain things about certain life questions, and I send them off in the way of information that helps them, because, like I say, with this educating myself thing, I immediately, once I got my first laptop at 26, I immediately went into forbidden archaeology, pyramids, aliens, UFOs, ghosts, you name it, I went there with that. Before I had a computer, I was already into tarot and star signs, a bit of numerology. I had this book that I called my Bible. It was like this big, and it had a really good fundamental for all the different types of divination. However, the tarot has stayed with me. I was given 2 decks in my life. I'm on my second now. This is something I offer people when people are interested in it, because it seems to always work out. I used it back then as a way of considering things differently, because I always thought about things differently. So one of my other earliest memories with things that I used to question in growing up was we were given the New Testament in first school, and my first question in my head was, where's the old one? And I think this has always been something that's part of my main spirit, as it were. So moving forwards with this, I'm currently in a house right now where a guy has been nice enough to take me in. So I came to Cyprus to change my life, to get off the drugs, which I have done. However, I am a little bit stuck in this area because unfortunately I can't access work. And this leads me to asking for help, in exchange obviously for things like tarot readings, counselling. If people have questions, they can ask me. I'm generally quite intuitive with how I can get a word across or how I can inspire people. It seems to always work this way. And I've been doing my tarot recently, and the cards are always coming out the same. They're coming out as big change, things are going to happen, trust in this world, adjust to this world, and so here I am. So just one more thing before I go. The other thing about the counselling thing is, what I want to offer is to the guys. One of the things I think we have to change is the man up and shut up and get on with it type thing. Now, I come from a generation who are all like this, and I can see where it helps, but I can also see that it's very unhealthy. So I think that we as guys need to learn that it's okay to express our feelings. It's okay to, be upfront with how we feel and not just let it bubble up so we get angry. Let's see. yeah, that's that really. So in closing, I want to say thank you very much for your kind attention, and if this video and my words resonate with you, if you want to donate, you can just plop my email into PayPal. If you want to book a tarot reading or book a Skype session, I am up for doing these things. I'll probably just ask something like €40 or £40 or something like this, because I don't want to take people's money. I'm not that greedy. Some people I know, they charge loads of money, and I'm not up for that. So I want anyone to be able to access like information and knowledge. It shouldn't just be restricted for those who actually have like more money than say I do. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's it. So once again, thank you very much. I hope this reaches enough people where we can do something different and do something good that can help. Thank you very much, guys. Bye bye.